Hello everyone and welcome back to the second episode of Byakhya's Economic Picks of the Week, where we present weekly economic and business highlights of the country with our own analytical twist. I am your host John Manandar, and today we will be covering economic and business highlights from 6th March to 12th March. Did you know that the Nepali Rupee has plunged to an all-time low against the US dollar? What's the reason behind this unprecedented depreciation, and what does it mean for the highly import-dependent economy of Nepal? Mobile broadband in Nepal was low to begin with. However, it seems the connection is getting even slower while only growing more expensive. Why? We will also be questioning whether it's only the high rental charges that have deterred investors from opening factories in the Bhairahawa Special Economic Zone, the first special economic zone of the country, or are high rental charges just the tip of the iceberg. You will also hear our take on how we are paradoxically wasting electricity currently when we were literally power starved 5 years ago. And I'm sure you are all expecting this. For the final news, we will be giving our 2 cents on the local level election on May 13, which I'm sure you all voted on. So sounds interesting, right? On May 10, the value of the Nepali Rupee dropped to an all-time low against the US dollar at Rs 123.65 per dollar, therefore raising concerns about the impact such a high devaluation would have on the already widening balance of payment deficit and the dwindling foreign reserves of the country. So what is the reason behind such unprecedented depreciation, and how would it impact the Nepalese economy? Considering that the Nepali Rupee (NPR) is pegged against the Indian Rupee (INR), the depreciation of NPR against the US dollar is due to the appreciation of the US dollar against the INR and other currencies. In fact, the greenback appreciated to a near 16-month high against its peers, putting it on pace for its biggest annual gain in 6 years. There are 3 major reasons that explain why US dollar has appreciated by so much. Firstly, backed by the largest economy, the US dollar is the de facto global currency accepted for trade throughout the world. As it also makes up over 60% of all known central bank foreign exchange reserves, it also holds the title of the global reserve currency. Moreover, around 90% of forex trading and 40% of the world's debt are issued in US dollars. As a result of its perceived importance to the global economy, the US dollar is therefore considered a safe haven currency that people trust will hold its value during times of global turmoil and uncertainty like now. On the back of this trust, the demand for US dollars has therefore sharply increased, causing its appreciation. Secondly, in order to tame the current inflationary pressure, the Federal Reserve or the Central Bank of the United States is set to sharply increase the federal funds rate, which will increase the interest rate on US securities, making it attractive for investors and increasing the demand for US dollars. The higher demand for US dollars will appreciate its value, thereby decreasing the price of imports for the US, which would weigh on US inflationary pressure through the consumption channel. At the same time, it would cause foreign consumers to switch from more expensive dollar-based goods to cheaper alternatives produced elsewhere, therefore dampening the demand for US exports while assisting the shift in policy toward bringing inflation back around the central bank's 2% target. Though the Fed hasn't increased the federal funds rate yet, anticipating the increase, investors have already started demanding US dollars, resulting in its appreciation. Finally, due to its status as an unofficial global currency, most of the global trade is conducted in US dollars. Therefore, with global inflationary pressure making trade expensive, the transaction demand for US dollars has increased, causing its appreciation. Now, if the Nepalese economy was export-oriented, the strengthening of the US dollars or the weakening of the NPR could have been opportunity for Nepal to grow exports. However, as we are a highly import-dependent country, the appreciation of the greenback will make imports even more expensive than it already is. The rise in import prices will cause a further decline in the foreign reserves that have already reached concerning levels and also exacerbate the already high inflationary pressure in the country, making cost of living expensive for citizens. Now to the next news. With the hopes of enticing export-oriented firms to set up factories in the forlorn and empty Bhairahawa Special Economic Zone, do you guys remember how the government had promised to halve rental charges in the maiden SEZ of the country from March 23? Well, despite the fact that a month has passed since the promise was made, the government still has not lived up to its promise, citing that discussions were still underway in that regard. So is it the high rental charges that has deterred investors from opening factories in the much hyped SEZ of the country? Why are only 7 factories operating inside this export-oriented enclave despite it being nearly 2 decades since construction was completed in 2003? It is not only because of the high rental charges. In fact, the government had drastically reduced the monthly rate from the original rupees 150 square per meter to rupees 20 in March 2016. But that still did not attract investors. The SEZ authority then had decided to halve the rent to rupees 10 per square meter to go into effect by March 23. Well, while the government has fixated on slashing the rent, it has failed to ensure an uninterrupted supply of basic electricity and water in the SEZ and has also not lived up to its promise of providing amenities such as a one-stop service system, initial environmental impact assessment service, customs, bank, insurance, tax and other services that attract investors in the SEZ in the first place. As the government has not been able to provide the required facility for years, some businessmen interested in setting up factories in the zone are in a wait and watch mode, while deterred by the state of the SEZ, others have cancelled their agreements to operate plants. Furthermore, industries initially refused to enter the SEZ due to the condition of exporting 80% of products. Therefore, the SEZ Act was later amended and the export percentage was lowered to 60%. However, despite the amendment, industrialists are still skeptical about whether they will be able to export the said percentage and have already demanded a further reduction to the limit, citing that the lack of adequate raw materials in the country makes it difficult for investors to maintain the export quota. While the government is planning to have a more progressive system by setting the export requirement at 20% in the second year, 40% in the third year, and 60% in the fourth year to help manufacturers find buyers, as the Special Economic Zone Act 2016 hasn't been amended yet, it is still unclear what kind of factories will be allowed in. This uncertainty has also instilled a wait and watch mode among potential investors. I'm sure we all still harrowingly recall the period from 2008 to 2018 as the dark ages when we suffered from power outages of up to 18 hours daily due to acute electricity shortage in the country. Since the period of the energy crisis, we have made important strides in capitalizing on our hydropower advantage. Currently, the total electricity produced is 2150 megawatt, and with the current average domestic consumption remaining at 1600 megawatt, we have a surplus power of 550 megawatt. This is expected to grow even more in the near future as 4000 megawatt of power projects are scheduled to be connected to the national grid in the next 3 to 4 years, and the country is also targeting to generate 10,000 megawatts of electricity by 2026. Considering how power-starved we were 5 years back, this might seem unbelievable to you guys, but currently our surplus electricity is going to waste as we have neither been able to fully consume it nor export it. According to the Nepal Electricity Authority, Nepal faced a wastage of 500 megawatt of electricity worth Rs 5 billion during the rainy season last year. So does it mean we have more than enough electricity to go around? No, because 10% of the population in rural districts still remain in darkness, while about 70% of industries still rely on expensive diesel-powered generators to operate their plants. So what gives? The current crisis we are facing is not an energy crisis but a crisis of energy management. First of all, the government failed to launch the domestic consumption scheme on time. Therefore, despite introducing recent measures such as reducing taxes on electrical equipment, slashing electricity tariffs, and waiving demand fees for households and industries, domestic consumption of electricity hasn't grown as anticipated. The government simply failed to act on the fact that it will take the population time to transition to electricity from fuel-based sources which are still more convenient and affordable. Secondly, the transmission infrastructure installed decades ago has become outdated and unable to bear the load of energy that is currently consumed, causing energy spillage losses amounting to more than Rs 382 million annually. Along with being outdated, the transmission line, substation and transformers are also inadequate and have not reached every corner of the country. Therefore, Despite a portion of the population living in the dark, we have no choice but to waste precious electricity. Neither have we been fully able to consume the surplus power, nor have we been able to satisfactorily export it due to a lack of institutional mechanism for cross-border electricity trade. But recently, we have made some meaningful strides in exporting electricity. After continuous lobbying, India has finally allowed us to sell electricity from selected projects on the Indian Energy Exchange. Also, the Cross-Border Trade of Electricity Regulations 2019 issued by India in 2021 has not only made the sale of electricity to India possible, but has also opened the gateway for trilateral power trade with Nepal, India, Bangladesh. Also, in a recent development during Prime Minister Sherbadur Dewa's recent visit to India, Prime Minister Modi also agreed to purchase 364 megawatt of electricity produced during the rainy season in the Himalayan Republic. Therefore, things are looking bright on the export front, and hopefully electricity won't go to waste this time around. However, the government should realize that while the domestic population remains power hungry, it does not make sense to export electricity abroad. From a financial perspective too, this is a loss to the country, because the NEA is currently selling electricity to India at an average price of Rs 5 per unit, while it is selling electricity at an average rate of Rs 10.62 per unit to household consumers and industries. Therefore, it is clear that an authority will benefit more from selling electricity within the country than from selling it abroad. The country will also benefit it in the same. Now to the next news. Nepal's mobile broadband speed was already slow to begin with, but the already slow connection is getting relatively even slower, says the latest report by Ookla, a US web-based service that provides free analysis of internet access performance metrics. As per the Speed Test Global Index reported by the company, Nepal has slipped to the 109th spot among 142 countries in mobile broadband speed in May, which is a staggering drop of 22 points in ranking from 80th position in May last year. According to the speed test report, the median download speed in Nepal clocked at 16.45 Mbps and the upload speed at 10.35 Mbps in May. While Nepal's upload speed is higher than the median global upload speed of 8.7 Mbps, the download speed is well below the global median of 29.96 Mbps. According to the Connectivity in the Least Developed Countries Status Report 2021, mobile broadband has a higher impact on economic growth than fixed broadband in the developing countries due to the simple reason that there are so few fixed broadband subscriptions. Therefore, a slowdown in the mobile broadband will definitely mean a slowdown in economic growth. If you are wondering, there are various reasons why mobile broadband is so slow in Nepal. While mobile internet users have reached 29.33 million, accounting for 97.42% of total internet subscriptions, high-capacity infrastructures that are vital for a high-speed connection haven't grown at the same speed to support the growth in number. Furthermore, despite introducing high-speed internet access technologies like 3G in 2010 and 4G in 2017, telecommunication companies offering such services have largely failed to meet subscribers' expectations, and their expansion has also not been satisfactory. But broadband in general is not only slow, it is also expensive in Nepal. According to the same report, Nepalis pay more for internet access than other South Asians. In 2020, a Nepali had to spend 2.6% of their gross annual income to buy internet service, which puts Nepal behind India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan in affordable digital access, where the cost is less than 1%. However, according to the International Telecommunication Union, broadband service in developing countries should not cost more than 2% of the gross national income per capita. So we are definitely paying more for internet in Nepal. There are mainly two reasons why internet connectivity is low in Nepal. The first is the government's mentality to tax everything and anything. Currently, internet companies have to pay 2% Rural Telecommunication Development Fund tax, 4% royalty, 13% telecommunication service charge, and import duty on telecommunication equipment. These high taxes are passed by the internet companies to consumers in the form of higher prices. Secondly, the government has not yet implemented the infrastructure sharing plan. Infrastructure sharing is a concept where several telecom companies use the same system like towers and fibers network to provide their services. freeing them from having to build and invest in individual installation. As companies currently have to build their own infrastructures, the cost is therefore passed down to consumers in the form of higher prices. So did all of you vote in the May 13 elections to elect leaders at your respective local levels? I hope you all did and did it wisely, because local representatives that you elect are the ones that connect the state with the people, and it is also through them the state delivers its service to the people. In fact, the Constitution has bestowed 22 explicit authorities upon the local government, which is directly linked with the day-to-day lives of the general public. Not only are local level elections a hallmark of a democracy and important in strengthening federalism that the country adopted in 2015, but it is also important to hold elected representatives accountable. Election demonstrates the power of the people over the elected representatives. Through elections, citizens can reward the leaders and parties by re-electing them if they have worked for the betterment. If not, people can penalize them by voting against them and replacing them with other better leaders and parties. This fear of losing the next election is what ensures representatives work for the people during their 5-year term, thereby effectively limiting their otherwise unbridled power. So be sure to exercise your voting rights wisely, which is both your right and your duty. Remember this when you vote in the general election in November of this year. Now for some interesting facts about election. Did you know that this is the second time people are voting in local elections since the promulgation of the Constitution in 2015 and the fourth time since the restoration of democracy in 1990? Also, the 2017 local elections were held in 3 phases on May 14, June 28 and September 18, while this year we held it on May 13 across the country. As the May 13 election was held exactly after 5 years, it holds significance as the first timely election held in the spirit of Constitution. The 2017 local level election, on the other hand, was held after a gap of 20 years. And why are periodic elections important? Because of the same reason why elections are important in the first place, to hold the leaders accountable and to show them citizens are the boss. Want to know more interesting facts about the 2022 election? Stay tuned because we got you covered. So, did you find our economic highlights insightful? If you did, then please like and share it with your loved ones and other economic lovers out there. Do you have any feedback? Then please comment it on the comment section below. So that's it for now. Have a wonderful week ahead and see you next week like always. Checking out John Manandar.